Welcome to episode 186, originally published on the 13th of February 2026. My coverage of Iain M. Banks' wonderful Culture series continues with the 7th novel, Matter, published in 2008. This is the longest novel in the Culture series yet, and in some ways the most complex. Set on a vast macrostructure, specifically the artificial planet of Sursamen. Banks weaves an ambitious plot, which at times makes the novel feel like use of weapons nested inside inversions, or perhaps it's the other way round. This is literally a story of spheres within spheres, as the different levels of the planet play host to various species, conflicts, and levels of technological development. In what is in part another Banksian meditation on the ethics of intervention, a novice culture agent must decide how best to interfere in a conflict that threatens not only the lives of her siblings, but the fate of a world. Sursamen is no ordinary planet. Entirely artificial, it's a vast construct of concentric spheres, each layer a world unto itself. Its days and nights are determined by synthetic stars which run on rails along its colossal ceilings. Built for an inscrutable purpose by a long-extinct species, it's home to various intelligent races, from the humanoid Sal to the Monthian megawhales. A new discovery threatens the balance between even more formidable factions from outside, including the Culture. Matter is the 7th novel in the Culture series by Iain M. Banks. On publication, it had been 8 years since the previous Culture novel, Look to Windward, was published in 2000. This novel opens the final phase of Banks' beloved series, a trio of lengthy works long on epic spectacle. The biggest Culture novel so far, Matter is a bold tale which fuses flavours from its precursors. The grand conflicts of Consider Phlebas, the subterfuge of use of weapons, and the fantasy-adjacent trappings of Inversions. Matter is a grand-scale SF adventure, and a continuation of Banks' use of the Culture series to explore questions of agency and intervention. Matter is a novel which operates literally and figuratively on a number of levels. It opens on the 8th level of Sursamen, during the closing stages of a war between the Sal and the Deldane, two humanoid species with technology roughly equal to that of Renaissance Europe. Under the leadership of King Hausk, the Sal win a victory over the Deldane, who had dominated the 9th level. In the aftermath, the wounded king is murdered by his long-time adjutant, Mertis Til Loesp. This killing is witnessed by Furbin, one of the king's sons, who is believed dead. This war story expands into something of a family saga. Mertis Til Loesp appoints himself regent, because Hausk's other son Oromen, now apparently the king's heir, is too young to succeed his father. Oromen, appointed to duties at a spectacular ruined city in the 9th level to keep him away from the Sal capital, begins to suspect foul play. King Hausk's daughter also learns of her father's death. Dejanseri Anaplion left Sursamen 15 years earlier, and has become a novice special circumstances agent for the Culture. In their own way, all three siblings, Furbin, Oromen and Dejanseri, have eye-opening encounters with powerful alien species, which each have a mysterious interest in the fate of the Shell World. Matter has something of an epic quality, and Banks packs it with characters, locations and incidents. There's a former Culture agent stirring up wars for entertainment, murderous court intrigue, sentient cloud creatures, and even a bloodthirsty drone that disguises itself as a sex toy. Relations and transitions between societies with different cultures and varying levels of technology is a common feature of Banks' novels, and Matter explores this thoroughly. The feudal monarchy of the Sal strongly recalls the civilizations in Inversions, albeit with more advanced technology like firearms, explosives and trains. Crucially, the Sal are well aware of the sophisticated elder species which control their galactic vicinity. They have friendly if confusing diplomatic relations with the crab-like Oct, and to a lesser extent with the Culture. The relative sophistication of the Saal does not preclude them from worshipping a vast creature that occupies the core of Sursamen, which they revere as their world god. This species, the Xinthian tenthile aeronithors, are described as utterly ancient and once near invincibly powerful, but now are enjoying a kind of retirement. Banks also poaches on fantasy turf with multiple species of domesticated flying creatures, which are flown by elite Saal scouts. Djan Seri is a key character, in that as a native of Sursamen who's joined the culture, she has distinct views on both. In some ways, she resembles Shiradaneen Zakalwe from Use of Weapons, although she's an enthusiastic novice rather than a jaded veteran. In a memorable scene, she meets a critic of special circumstances and defends the agency's well-meaning, sometimes risky, and just occasionally catastrophic interference in the affairs of other civilizations. While even Djan has reservations about her work, she's in fact trained to have them, she enjoys the culture's lack of sexism and misogyny. It's not only Djan Seri who's confronted with questions about power and intervention. Myrtis Til-Loesp, essentially the novel's villain, albeit a fairly small player in the grand scheme of things, is driven to achieve power largely for its own sake. Thurbin meets a cynical former culture operative who provokes wars in a kind of god game for the amusement of far more powerful civilizations. Similarly, advanced species like the Oct and the Ortridia, who evolved from a species of parasite, manipulate the fates of various factions on Sursamen, but are also manipulated in turn. The sympathetic characters in Matter are those who are initially reluctant to wield power over others, like Thurbin, or are troubled by their need to do so, like Djan Seri. For his part, Oroman is rightly suspicious of an artificially intelligent machine discovered on the 9th level, which, like today's large language models, tells its audience what they want to hear. His desire to wield power responsibly and to earnestly seek the truth sets him apart within the court intrigues of the Saal. Matter is interesting, also because it seems to react interestingly to other SF works. For example, the mentor and mentee relationships between species recalls the works of David Brin. It also feels as though Banks had been reading Alistair Reynolds since the previous Culture novel, especially because the combat suits accessible to Djan Seri and our allies strongly resemble those in the Revelation Space series. With that being said, Matter is still unmistakably written in the unique voice of Iain M. Banks. While it deals with huge questions and spectacular events, the novel is still littered with moments of humour. What this novel lacks in tight focus, compared to some of its predecessors in this loose and wonderful series, it makes up for in huge scope and richness of wild imagination. Thanks for listening. For more classic science fiction reviews, visit andyjohnson.xyz. You can also find the show on YouTube and follow updates on Blue Sky. In both cases, just search Classic SF with Andy Johnson. Finally, to get in touch, use the contact form on my site or hit the link in the episode description to send a text message.